Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain. And this afternoon on Cool Your Heels, Lillian Caldwell is going to interview Sue Zeal. Now, what makes her different from other people? Well, she wrote a book about losing weight. What makes it different from the other weight books? Well, it isn't quite exactly how to lose weight by running around like a frantic chicken or starving yourself and calling it fasting to everybody else. The name of the book is My Clothes Fit Again. Yay! The Overworked Woman's Guide to Losing Weight. So, Sue, could you please tell everybody who you are and what inspired you or motivated you to write yet another book about weight and how to lose it, not just for women, listen up, but also for men?
Well, thank you, Lillian. I'd love to. Well, I have a personal and a professional reason for writing the book. Personally, I lost my father when I was 15 and I started to gain weight. I was the one cooking and doing everything for all the guests that were coming to visit him. So I ended up gaining lots and lots of weight as a young child at 15. And then there was a day that his funeral came and I was supposed to get into my clothes to go to the funeral and nothing fit. And my mom said, "Hey, what are you doing? You need to look presentable. We're going to your father's funeral." And I was like, "Mama, nothing fits." Well, so then afterwards I lost weight and I did what the typical person does is I lost a ton of weight. My adrenals went into a little bit of a shock. They thought, "Oh my goodness, this poor child is starving themselves." And so I actually started doing the yo-yo diet. I'd gain 10 pounds. Well, I'd lose 15, gain 25. I did what everybody does, right? And so I started getting very sick. And that's the personal side of it. I ended up getting sick just because of my dieting style. But on the professional side of it, I'm a physical therapist and an integrative nutritional health coach and a yoga instructor. And what I realized in 35 years of practicing as a physical therapist is I noticed that people would gain weight depending on some of the emotional stress they were suffering from, if it was a hormonal imbalance or if it was a digestive insult. Sometimes I would see a motor vehicle accident patient and she would have whiplash. And then all of a sudden she would start getting stomach problems and then she'd start gaining weight. And so after I started to research this really in depth, I realized that the body responds to trauma in both a physical, mental, or an emotional way. And we hold on to weight if we have trauma in our body because of our autonomic nervous system. So my book is a lot different than the other diet books because if you pick up a diet book that says eat this, eat broccoli, eat this, or like eat carrots, eat celery, and it gives you a protocol of what to eat. But in my book, I try and teach people what the body's saying. So, for example, if you're having a hormonal imbalance, and you've added weight to different areas of your body, that's your body telling you, "Hey, our estrogen is off or our testosterone is off." And I teach people how to listen to what their body's telling them so that they can go, "Well, maybe that's what's happening to me," versus just, "Oh, I'm just going to eat carrots for the rest of my life." So I teach you about the body and what the body needs in order to be healthy.
That sounds pretty good. I remember I was on prednisone, and I was up to 190 pounds. And if you've ever been on prednisone, you know why.
Yep.
And I was told by my doctor, "You really need to lose weight." So I did, to the point of starving myself. And I did it while I was still on prednisone. So I got down to like 110 or something. And he was hysterical. And I kept it off for about a year or two. And finally says, "You really need to get your weight up." Well, I got my weight up and now it's really difficult for me to lose weight. And of course, I'm on a restricted diet, on course of everything else. We won't go that path. But anyhow, and I know that a lot of other women, especially if they've been models, have gone the same path.
Yes.
And they have found that after they've done extensive, nasty things to their systems, we won't go into that, they have trouble really either regaining the weight, getting their eating patterns to regulate, or they just can't lose the weight anymore because they feel like they taught their system the wrong things when they were doing that type of dieting. And so their body's now incapable of regulating itself and being able to lose the weight.
That's exactly true, Lillian. Matter of fact, that happened to me when I was young. What happens is your body wants to be in balance. And so if the adrenals feel that you're in a state of stress, they're going to slow down your metabolism so that your metabolism slows down so much so that you can eat a carrot and gain weight. But what also happens is when you've stimulated the autonomic nervous system because of fear, and fear can be, like you said, a model could say, oh, I'm so heavy. I've gained 2 pounds over the weekend. That's fear. And the brain recognizes that as fear. And the brain and the gut talk to one another. So what happens is the brain goes into the autonomic nervous system and it stimulates the fight or flight. And when the fight or flight system is activated, we will gain weight. It doesn't matter because the brain's telling us we're in danger. Hold on to everything you have. And so, you know, like even if the model says, okay, I've gained weight, or she's been someone that's been in a system where she's been dieting her whole life and her adrenals are saying, okay, well, you've pretty much got to shut down. Now our thyroid is affected and now our liver's having a hard time because everything, it all works together. And the body is trying to balance at all times. So when you add one thing, the body's going to shut down another thing. So when we find that balance, we no longer have to diet. We just have to make sure that we're giving the appropriate nutrition to the adrenals, our hormones, our gut. We're trying to control too much sugar. People don't even know how much sugar they're eating anymore because it's all hidden in our food. And
yes, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I used to live off the land, so I made a lot of my own food. And one of the things I never put in was sugar, but sugar finds itself into ketchup and barbecue sauce and into mustard. You would be surprised, folks, where they put sugar in. And it's because Americans or Western civilization does not like the idea of punishing themselves with nasty, sour, ucky tasting things. When I was a kid, they first came out with aspirin that were sugar coated. So it tasted more like candy. And my cousin at a young age didn't know that. And he didn't feel well. So he started eating these pills that he thought were candy. And he ate almost the whole bottle. Yeah, he landed up in the hospital having his stomach pumped, and his parents were, well, I'm not going to say what his parents were, but the moral of the story is if it has sugar in it and it's medication, don't give it to your kids.
No, don't do that. But that's an interesting topic that you bring up, Lillian, is that, so here's what happens in the gut, okay? When, let's say we look at a bagel, and a bagel may have 38 grams of carbohydrates in it. And when you read food labels, that can be misleading also because you think 38 grams of carbohydrates. Okay, well, then they try and say there's sugar grams too. But how you figure out how many teaspoons of sugar are in that bagel, you would subtract the fiber from it. So let's say, you have 8 grams of fiber in that. And then there's 4 grams of carbohydrates in your meal. So you would divide 4 into the 30. And that's how many teaspoons of sugar you're actually eating. Okay, so that's a lot of sugar. Now, when the gut gets a lot of sugar and the bacteria in the gut is off, we want a good gut bacteria because then it helps us to digest food and it actually craves good food. But when the sugar imbalance is off in our gut, it has a higher yeast in our gut. And so what that does is, have you ever made bread and you put sugar on top of it to make the
sugar makes it raise, people.
Exactly. And so what that does is the gut now is saying, I need sugar. So it doesn't matter if you have the strongest willpower in the world, your gut is saying, to survive, I need that donut, I need that bagel, I need sugar. And so it tells the brain, go get me some sugar. And so even if you're trying to be the best person in the world with willpower, the gut and the brain are talking. And if that gut biome is not in the 80-20%, 80 good gut bacteria to 20% yeast, then what happens is the yeast starts saying, hey, I need sugar, and you crave it. And then that throws everybody off because, like what you stated earlier, you said people don't want to eat the sour, icky foods. But if you have a good gut bacteria, you actually crave that food. It's because your bad gut bacteria is so high that you're craving the junk food. That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does to me. So the amount of diets that are out there.
Yeah.
I mean, my friend from Washington D.C. just sent me one. She says, "Well, you eat five meals a day, and you're eating mostly protein. It's a high protein diet." Well, I know that if you're not really active and running around or doing farm labor 10 to 15 hours a day, which is the way our diets were originally set up, folks, it was not set up for the modern 21st century, nor the 20th century for that matter. It does wreak havoc in your system. I mean, I've seen my daughter-in-law try everything to lose weight, and she finally settled on a keto diet. But now they're having some very bad things saying about the keto diet. And I often wonder, even with Weight Watchers, which is depending on fat content and chocolate, folks, in case you ever wonder why it's so popular. That's why Oprah Winfrey has never really lost weight. But moving right along, I would think that all these kind of diets, especially the ones coming out, Nutrisystem and the others that they have, is really all the wrong perceptions to get people to lose weight, because it's not so much losing the weight, it's keeping it off, folks. Maintaining the balance that you should be having. And I've got to tell you, if you have a autoimmune disease that eats your muscles, all the exercise in the world is not going to help you.
That's a really good point. You made a really good point in there. I wanted to go back to something that you had said, is that everybody's body requires something different. And so
Yes.
when you take a book and you say, okay, I'm going to try this keto diet or the paleo diet, they all have great value in some respect, and they all have some things that aren't so perfect, but your body needs what it needs, and it's called bioindividuality. And so one person may do really great on the keto diet and one person may do horrible on it because it's their body doesn't do well with it. It's just like being a vegetarian and eating meat. Like a lot of people don't do well when they eat meat. A lot of people don't do well when they have a plant-based diet. So the trick is figuring out what your body is asking for. And once you figure that out by understanding what the liver needs, understanding what the gut needs, understanding how the hormones are affecting us, and also understanding what's causing inflammation that could cause you to go into an autoimmune disease. All of those things are cues that the body's giving us, but no one knows how to interpret them. And that's what I try and do in my book. And the other thing that I do in my book is I just lost my train of thought. I always say in my webinars, bloopers are, you normally have to play for bloopers, but you know.
Okay, well, then what are the 8 steps?
Oh, okay. So the 8 steps are actually, what I want people to understand is they have to understand what they need for food. And the first food that we actually feed our body is what's considered a foundational food group. For example, if you're stressed about if you're stressed about finances, or you're in a really bad relationship, or you're in a bad job, or you're lonely and depressed, let's say that you have no social network. Those are part of our foundational food groups, and they feed us. So if a woman is in a relationship with a man and she feels abused mentally, physically, and she's trying to lose weight, she will not lose weight, because that is feeding our spirit and our soul, and it's causing us to go into fear and hold on to the weight for safety and security. So I teach people about understanding what's feeding us. First is our foundational food groups, and then second is what we're eating with food. And I go through what's in the food, because there's a lot of toxins in the food. And once our body tries to break down a toxin, that causes inflammation in our system, which could cause an autoimmune disease. And I teach about what's in the food. Then the next step I do is I have people realize where they want to be with their life. So for example, you have to have a destination to go to. And that destination isn't just, oh, I want to lose 20 pounds and look fabulous and look like that, perfect model. It is not that. A destination is, how do you want to feel when you get up off the couch? How do you want to feel when you walk up the stairs? How do you want to feel, in your clothes? How do you want to feel, when you're standing? Just how does your body and what do you want to live like? Like, for example, we'll go back to the foundational food groups and we'll say, how do you want your social situations to look like? If you're lonely, how can we incorporate that to feed that part of your body? Or if you're in a bad job, how can we change our perception or change our position to make that better? And then the next steps is once you have your goal, we start working towards those goals, because you can't go anywhere unless you have a destination. You just go around and around in circles. And then I go through teaching the person about the liver and the gut and the hormones. I try and encourage them to understand what their body's saying versus just ignoring it. If we're not sleeping at night, that's a sign that maybe our hormones are out of balance, or there's a sugar imbalance and we're waking up in the middle of the night because we're craving sugar and our body's saying, hey, you need some sugar because you just had that at 3 o'clock. That pick-me-up sugar that we all do, at 3 to keep us awake. But then that wears off, and in the middle of the night, maybe at 2 o'clock, you're wide awake and you're worrying about the bills and you're worrying about everything. So I teach people how to read that in their body and know what to do with that. And then the next thing I do is I help them detox. I help them understand that detox isn't just with food. It's detoxing our files that are in our office that are all over the place and we can't figure out where everything is. It's organizing ourselves so that we feel comfortable and we don't have to have the fear. I also teach them about detoxing the foods they're eating, detoxing friendships that aren't serving us. If people are making you feel horrible, that's putting us in that fear mode, and it's not a good person to be with, right?
Oh, absolutely. I can attest to that. Every time I have a bad fight with my boyfriend, jelly beans. Come on.
Let's see. And then the other thing I do is towards the end of it, I teach people how to, I'm a yoga instructor also. And so what I try and do is teach people how to decrease the stress, because we're finding, if you read all the headlines in the news, we're finding that stress is the number one reason for inflammation. And inflammation is the number one reason for all the diseases that we're hitting. And so we really need to de-stress. And especially in this time, I'm encouraging people I'm teaching them how to de-stress and how to understand what their body needs to really function fully. My whole mission, if you really want to know, Lillian, is I wanted to help people now at this age and younger, for me, but 35 on, I want to teach people what's good for their body now, so that when they're in their 80s, they're on the beach dancing and having fun and not sitting in a wheelchair or on oxygen because when they were younger, they didn't listen to their body. That's my whole thing.
And what's more important, people, I'm 69 and I'm a lot better getting off the floor than I used to be.
There you go.
Think about that. Your body feels heavier. Whether it is or not is a moot point. Your body, I tried to do jumping jacks the other day. I couldn't even jump. And it's because my body is convinced it's so heavy. Well, it really isn't. But somewhere in my mind, my doctor put the idea that I'm really 500 pounds when I'm not. But you are weighed down by all this baggage you accumulate.
Well, the brain talks to the body. I mean, and that's, yes. I teach a yoga class. I actually teach a virtual yoga class right now. And it's turned into such an absolutely wonderful community because I make people get up off the ground. As a physical therapist, that's what I did, is I want functional bodies. So I'm encouraging people to breathe appropriately so they stimulate the relaxation response and not the fight, flight, or freeze response. And in yoga, everybody has to get up off the floor, but some people don't know how to get off the floor. As a physical therapist for years, I would see people panic. And so now I'm like, okay, you got to get to this spot. You bring one leg up and you do this. And I teach people now. So I have a class that's called a Let's Start Moving class. And I have people that have had bilateral hip replacements, bilateral knee replacements, same person, mind you, a cervical fusion. I have one gentleman that's 86 years old. I have one woman that's 40, and we adapted for the needs of their body. And I think they've been with me for about 5 years now, and it's a fabulous little social network. And I want people to move and love their body because, we only have one body.
That's right. And you only get one chance of this.
We only get one chance, and we got to take care of it. But some people, it's like when I was a little girl, I'd fall, I'd come off my horse, and I'd fall, and I'd skin my knee, and it would be bleeding, and there'd be rocks in my knee, and I'd go, oh my gosh, I hope no one saw me. I got to brush this off, right? And I would just ignore that pain, right? And so we got so used to doing that we ignore that if we have an egg and we have the scoots right after it, that's a bad thing for our body. Or if we eat something and we're belching, that's a sign that the body didn't like it. Or if we're not moving, if we're sitting a lot, we get stiff and we feel heavy. It's just, we got to listen to our body again. And we've stopped doing that.
Well, you stop doing it after a certain age. And you have to learn the fact that you only get one chance, but you also have to realize that you are unique. You're not like anybody else. And your problems, whether physical, emotional, spiritual, yes, I bring that up. You have to understand that you are different from somebody else.
Yes.
I know that I can withstand a lot longer than most people would care to or want to. Why? Because I was told that a woman sometimes has to put up with it because that's what women do. Now, that was a 50s philosophy left over from World War II, World War I, and proving that you're better than anybody else. But whether you want to believe it or not, that's what I was taught. You have to bear pain to be beautiful. That's what my mother taught me. I started hearing it around 4 years old every time she brushed my hair. And you know that you've been taught things like that as well. Just the way I did not teach my son that he shouldn't cry. I said, if you need to cry, you cry. None of this heroic crap. I said, if you don't feel well, tell me. If you hurt, tell me. I don't have a crystal ball. They don't have the repair parts in the shop. Haven't had it there for 1,500 years. And I doubt they'll have them in another 2,000. So if something's bothering you, you've got to tell me.
Exactly, Lily.
They didn't do those things in the 70s with boys yet. They don't do that with boys in the 21st century. But I still tell my grandson, if you don't like something, speak up. If it hurts, cry. If it makes it feel better.
Exactly.
I said, do what's going to be right for you, not for me.
Absolutely. Well, Lillian, you brought up a really good, you said something about women. And that's one reason why I wrote this book, is because I have noticed that, women used to manage the house, take care of the kids, get the dinners, do the laundry, take care of the household. And then we became, a great workforce, and we started being very good with the financial, bringing the finances for the family. And yet we still need to, manage the children, manage the house, do the laundry, do the cooking. And so one of the things that I noticed as a physical therapist all these years, I would see women come in and they were just overwhelmed with what they were doing. They were exhausted. They had stopped taking care of themselves, and they were just running. I mean, they'd get up and they would, help the kids get dressed, help the kids find their backpack, get their husband off to work. And then they would try and fit in breakfast. And then they would throw in a load of laundry into the laundry tub. And then they would be in the car eating, trying to get to work. Then at work, they would work, doing an amazing job at what they were doing. And then at lunch, they were probably doing something for their children, or going and getting groceries at the grocery store, or picking up the laundry. I mean, we just have so many little hats that we wear. And what I found with my career is that I started noticing that women, I would hear this over and over and over. I would hear, I can just look at food and gain weight. And it was starting at 35, women would start saying this to me. And I realized at that point that they were just overstressing their system. And it's interesting to know that even working out, I started to research working out for women. And after a certain point, Lillian, if a woman stresses her body and works out like a man works out, she'll gain weight. She will not lose weight because her body is getting too stressed. And women handle stress differently than men. So what a woman does is she compartmentalizes everything, and she feels everything. Whereas a man, he can put it in the back burner and say, hey, I'm done with work. I'm going to sit here and watch the news, right? But a woman, she doesn't do that. She still has all those little nurturing antennas out to make sure the dog's fed, make sure the clothes are done. She's still doing everything. She never shuts off. And that's
no, she doesn't. I used to tell people, if you want a homestead, listen up. A man works From dawn to dusk, he comes home, doesn't do anything for the rest of the evening. A woman works 24/7. And then the man has the turns around and says to the woman, well, you're not working hard enough. Why are you sitting down when I work out in the field, breaking my back all day? And a woman who's the old fashioned, I homesteaded. I did washing by hand, scrubbing on rocks. I carry water up a mile away. The bathroom was a half a mile down the lane. I would cook from scratch. Did I have a kid? Yes, which meant you had a diaper with cloth and you had to wash that and make sure it's sterilized. All a guy did was go out in the field and come back after working 8 hours and take a load off his feet. But the woman got up before the husband by at least an hour and a half to start getting breakfast ready, to start getting the bread rising. So don't tell me that men work harder than women, because I'll laugh in your face.
Well, that's really, but in the olden days, Lily and I, that is something that actually I remember seeing it to the point. And there are some, now I will say this, there are some supermen out there. There's super women that do everything and they try and do everything. And then they're lucky if they have a superman that jumps in and helps with the laundry and helps watch the kids. And we're seeing a little bit of a shift in that. I think that women's body is just set up so differently that she can't turn it off, whereas man can. But sometimes, I did have, this was a really funny thing, Lillian, is that I had a client listening to my book on tape, and the gentleman came over the next day and he says, I want to know why men can't benefit from this book. This book is awesome. Why is it just geared for women? I go, it's not geared for women. It's just about handling, weight loss and getting back into your clothes. Anybody that has a hard time buttoning up their pants or putting on a dress will have a great time with this book. I said, but women handle stress differently than men. And that's one thing I wanted to get inside the reader's mind. But also, I'm seeing a shift where there are men now, which I'm very thankful of, that are jumping in and just as much as Superman as the Superwoman complex. They are helping out. But I do know what you're talking about, because I remember my dad, he would go to work and then he'd come home and sit. And then we would buzz around and do everything. But my mom wasn't working outside of the home. There was a huge shift in, what women's roles were. And
after the war, yeah, but then you had the added responsibility. Exactly. And I just know from living off the land, which is, you do it like it was 200 years ago, that a woman never stops.
No, and she still doesn't stop.
And she still doesn't. And that's part of the problem.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to say in the book. It's okay to be able to sit down and have the kids, maybe the kids need to jump in a little bit more, maybe it's okay to sit down. I think sometimes the woman feels like she can't say no. And I want to encourage the woman, saying no to some outside might be saying yes to your body when you're older.
What we need to learn how to do is to put ourselves first. Not second to our husband, not third for the children, and certainly not under cockroaches and pets. We have run out of time, Sue, so please tell everybody where they can find you and your book on the World Wide Web. Any contact information, any little advice, whatever you want to share.
Perfect. Thank you, Lily. Well, you can get a hold of me at sue@suesilwellness.com. That is my email address. I have Sue Sil Wellness website, and my book is on Audible. It is an ebook format, and it's paperback format, and it's sold in all bookstores and through Amazon. And if you're interested in virtual yoga, again, you could email me at sue@suesilwellness.com. Or if you're interested in learning more about how to take care of yourself, again, it's sue@suesilwellness.com.
Thank you. And thank you all very much for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio, Cool Your Heels, with your guest, Sue Sil. And you can hear this on all social media, on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Just go to the website, https:// // passionateworld.com. PWTRN.com. Follow the directions, and you should be able to either see or hear the video and audio of this program. Before we go away and stray, the Marquis of Halifax had this to say in the 17th century: wisdom is only a comparative quality. It will not bear a single definition. So thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon. Remember to keep wearing those masks, keep wearing or being 6 feet apart. It does make a difference. And have a good evening.